Nadya's Identity Files. I have with me the estimable Jean Decay.
Hello.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Me too.
Thank you for coming. We were just talking about health shakes because Body Energy Club, which you're probably seeing behind us right now because green screen is really, really delicious. And because I'm shouting them out, you guys should kind of sponsor me. Just saying.
Body Energy Club is yummy for sure.
I love it. What's your favorite shake from there?
The peanut butter one. The peanut butter shake with the
skinny one?
Oh no, the thick one with all the like extra fat. I know it's like
that sounds like a metaphor for things.
For my overeating and my I usually overeat for stress reasons, so yeah.
Well, you're super thin, so there you go. So today, obviously, we're exploring gender identity and gender fluidity and art and being a drag performer, which I'm super excited to talk about. I don't know how many episodes of my past episodes you've watched, but I've explored different areas of gender before. My favorite so far being with Jane Starr. I don't know if you checked that one out, which you're going to have to check that one out. Jane, I've been promoting the shit out of you, so you owe me, okay? You owe me big time. So I want to know the story behind Jean Decay. Can you share?
Jean Decay started, Jean Decay was definitely influenced by RuPaul's Drag Race. I don't think she would have existed without it. You're talking about Drag Race earlier as really being kind of the cultural phenomenon and what everybody kind of thinks of when they're coming into drag. But Jean Decay really comes from my sisters. I have 3 older sisters and a gay brother. And all of my references, all of the things that I grew up with were very queer. We always talked about pop culture in the living room. We'd always kind of watch movies and television. So everything that kind of made a drag queen, which is like pop culture and music and art, that was already a part of my livelihood and my life for so long. So then coming into about a year and a half ago when I started doing drag, I was doing a lot of production design, I was doing a lot of different painting, and I loved all of that. But nothing's pulled me in like drag did, because I did get to talk about social issues. I did get to talk about gender identity and my own race and being Mexican and how that relates to being queer. So it's really just Jean Decay really just comes out of a lot of my anxieties towards the world, for sure.
Wow, so it's very much an outlet for you.
Oh, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of performances even now that I can look back on, and there's from specific issues I've had in my life, or they've been because of different issues that are happening in current culture. So I did a couple months ago John Wayne by Lady Gaga, and so but what I did was do I had on my chest The Border Crossed Me, and then I had my lovely partner who's probably watching right now, Ben, dressed up as an ICE agent and detained me during the performance, because I think people forget that that's happening right now. That's happening in this very moment. That people are literally being taken from their families.
I don't think there's enough of the social commentary infiltrating the performance space.
Not necessarily, no. And that was part of the reason why I started doing drag too, was to give a voice to a lot of these issues that I don't think necessarily have a outlet. And it is easier for us, I think, as queer people to get caught up in our own issues. It's really easy for us to look at things in a singular way. It's like, well, my identity is the one being marginalized. It's like, well, yeah, but what about people who are queer and Latino? What about the people who are queer and black? It's like, what about people who are queer, black, and trans? These people don't necessarily have voices because the issues they have to go through are trifold, doublefold.
Right, and those people are rarely seen in mainstream media.
Not at all.
And I think that is a big problem.
It is, yeah. And I think for me, part of my identity has been kind of being a know-it-all. And because, what kind of gay Latino know-it-all? I'm a Leo, so I'm very opinionated.
There you go. Ben? What's Ben's?
Ben's a Capricorn.
Oh, I'm a Capricorn too. Capricorn represent. That is a strong match right there.
But yeah, I don't see that in current culture, so I always kind of wanted to be that. It's like, well, no, you shouldn't be ashamed to be a person of color and be smart. You shouldn't be ashamed to be a queer person of color and be feminine and smart and all of these different things, and be able to talk about these issues, because I have to make sure that my community is being talked about.
Yeah.
You know, I owe it to them. I owe it to my family. I owe it to the people who raised me and the people who came before me to kind of talk about these issues.
I love that you have such a big purpose behind what you do. And I think it's really important to be purpose-driven.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, you are giving a voice to a lot of people, and it's probably inspiring and catalyzing other people to do similar things.
I hope so. I definitely hope so. I definitely hope that I'm providing a space where people feel open to be critical of current culture, to be critical of their own lives, to be critical of their own thoughts. You know, I don't think people kind of look inward enough and it's like, okay, what am I doing to enforce the patriarchy, to enforce these kind of social structures that have existed forever, you know?
Well, on that note, I want to raise, and I was going to save this for the round table, but it's too perfect of a segue. You know, a lot of feminists complain about male gazy stuff, you know, within the drag space, and that drag performance is obviously reinforcing female archetypes. What's your opinion about that?
I tend to fall under the Judith Butler line of gender identity. So for me, you were talking about it earlier, like gender, for me, gender is a construct, and I try to look at it sociologically as much as possible. When it comes to generally like radical feminists who are very anti drag, they're generally anti-trans too.
Yes,
which is baffling to me. But for me, I think it's really important to address the fact that cisgender women have their own privileges. The fact that you are able to criticize queer men for something that they get demonized for. Our femininity has been demonized just as much as the way that women have been demonized for being feminine or being masculine. So it isn't the fact that it's weird, because I think for them it's like, well, you're cisgender, you have these parts, so you automatically have privilege. I'm like, that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
And so I think they need to kind of, I think if, you know, somebody was listening like who thought that, it's like, I think you need to really look at where these references are coming from, because everything I've done has been done out of love, because all of because I am a feminine individual. So I own a part of that femininity. I don't think it's fair that only a specific type of human deserves to be feminine. And so it's always a little weird, because then you kind of do hold on to these same archetypes, these same structures. If you only exist, if it's like, no, identity has to be fluid. You have to let people be gender nonconforming.
And we have so many identities, which is part of the issue. Is like, sometimes I think people become too enveloped in one identity without, you know, they overshadow the other aspects of themselves.
Exactly.
And they don't realize just how much that identity that they've been enveloped in is kind of a societal imposition, if you will, onto themselves.
No, totally. And I think that is what's kind of interesting about drag, because I do have a lot of privilege in the sense that, like, when I get out of drag, I'm a cisgender man and I can present as a male. I don't have to worry about being on the street every single day and wondering if people are going to assume my gender, or if people are going to assume wrongly, or people are going to demonize me for that. And then that's just, I think it is important to remember those parts of your life, because I think it's really easy. I think it was easy for me years ago to kind of really just be angry at the world and be like, well, everything shitty's happened to me, well, so whatever. But it's like, no, I think we all have. Yeah, it's like, oh wait, no, I do.
I mean, we all have those. Yeah,
I do have a wonderful life. Like, I have a wonderful family. It's like I have to remember those things about my life.
Right. I think it's important that we, you know, try and move ahead with as much gratitude for what we have as possible. Yeah. You know, in spite of the hardships, and everyone's level of hardships is a little different. And I think that it's really fucked up that some people, at no fault of their own, have more hardships than others. Yeah. Just because of institutionalized racism and sexism and just all the bullshit that is, you know, rooted so deep in our society. Yeah. But all we can do is move forward and educate and inspire and empower people.
Yeah. And I think it's always important to remember that a lot of that my traumas and my issues doesn't negate somebody else's traumas and somebody else's issues that are going on. And I think a lot of people get like that. I know that I've felt that way sometimes. Even talking to my partner, you know, who's white, so he has a different experience than me.
Right.
And sometimes he's talking about stuff, and I start rolling my eyes, and I start getting angry, and I'm like, well, you know, you don't have it as hard as me. And it's like, well, okay, maybe on a race level, but he's also gone through stuff that I've never gone through, and I have to remember that. And it's sometimes really hard because you do kind of want to live in that turmoil. Right,
totally. Very, very interesting. Thank you so much for being here. I want you to tell me about your upcoming event.
Oh yeah, so it's called 4x4. It's for Latinx writers performing performance art pieces in Santa Monica at the Highways Gallery, a theater gallery, theater space. I'm really excited. It's specifically actually talking about identity and Latinidad. So how does your identity and your gender identity and all of these other aspects of your life fit with being a Latino, Latina, Latinx person in this world. And I'm really excited to do it. I'm doing it partly with my brother, Abraham, who is also a writer. So I'm really, really excited for that. Yeah, I'm really excited.
I'm going to try and make it for sure.
Yeah, June 2nd.
June 2nd,
yeah, June 2nd in the Highways Theater Space. 4x4 is what it's called. Tickets should go on sale soon. I'm really excited for it. I'm excited to talk about stuff.
Can you define for, because I think most people out there probably don't know what it means to be Latinx?
Latinx, I think you can kind of look at it in the same way that like Chicano was during a lot of political movements in the 1960s and throughout the 1980s as a politicized term for Latinidad or being a Latino. What is so special about being Latinx or Chicanx is that you are dismantling what Spanish does to language. So it's like very gendered language. So you're reminding people that, you can be Latino, you can be Latino, but there's a lot of other gender identities that exist that are still Latin, that are still Mexican, that are still Guatemalan. You know, all of these different kind of Latinidades that exist. And it took me a while to get used to that term, but now I love it. I think it's such an empowering term, especially for the gender nonconforming community. And I think that we really still need to start kind of getting them in the conversation.
Right.
Because it's not just about cisgender trans people, it's about everybody in between too.
The entire spectrum.
It's about entire spectrum and honoring all of these identities, because there's a lot of, and it's always funny because like for us, for me, it's like when I talk about like gender being a construct, it doesn't mean that it's not real to people. It doesn't mean that it's their gender identity is not real. It's like, that's real. Yeah, it's been affected by society, but it doesn't mean that
that's not. You're not trying to like.
No. Yeah. It's just trying to allow. I think for me, gender being a construct is to allow people to have it be whatever you need it to be.
Right, for yourself.
You know? Yeah, because then I'm cisgender, but I also dress up incredibly femininely 3-4 times a week, and I put on a lot of makeup, and so my gender identity isn't always completely the same.
Speaking of. Really quick, because we got so caught up in our conversation, I want to show the clip and it's Exposure
Drag. They're having a web series. You can find it on YouTube. It'll be coming out soon.
Okay, let's show the clip.
Hi, I'm Jean Decay, and I'm really good at sucking in my stomach. I'm enigmatic, didactic, polarizing, equilateral, contemptible, belligerent, and a little gassy. I got involved with Exposure's new web show because of my complete and utter narcissism. The way I got on will not be discussed for legal reasons. My key to success will be being smarter than everybody in the room, or sleeping with the cameraman, either one, whatever works. The challenges I'm probably looking forward to are the ones that involve a lot of running, or the ones that involve a lot of eating. I'm not really good at makeup, not really good at fashion, I can't sew anything, I'm not a really good lip syncer, I can't dance, but I can eat food and run around. Catch me, Jean Decay, on Exposure's new web show, coming soon. Meh. I don't like racism, that's all I gotta say. So, yeah.
Look at you.
I'm very absurd.
I love the absurdity. I bask in absurdity. Like,
same.
my absurdity is life. Like, life is absurd.
Yeah. Well,
hello.
I mean, we can go on for that.
Oh, that's like a whole nother
That's a whole nother
episode.
Identity Files absurdity of this
yes.
world. Yeah.
In the future it will happen. Well, thank you so much.
You.
When we come back, I will have rubella, and then we're going to have a roundtable
Awesome.
combo. All right. Stay tuned, y'all.